baby oil, candles, and a kiddie pool of baby oil. Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial is revealing what was used in the freak-off parties. The purported freak-off supplies from Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura's court testimony this week are being examined. The defense is having Cassie read dozens of text messages in court. What does Diddy want the jury to learn about his relationship with the singer after her evidence that he abused her for years? On Law and Crimes case. Let's begin. The prosecution's top witness in Sean Diddy Combs' trial testified this week. Cassandra Ventura, the star witness, dated Combs for a decade and revealed much about their relationship. The government's case centers on freak-offs, and now we're learning about their suppliers. Cassandra Ventura is the star witness again. She dated Diddy for 10 years. This ended in 2018. The day after Cassie sued Diddy in 2023, he settled. That lawsuit started the tale that's unfolding in court. Cassie told her story to the jury this week. She claims Combs beat, berated, and forced her to participate in freak-offs, alleged drug-fueled escort sex parties. Cassie found them psychologically and physically taxing. Sores, UTIs, and IVs were common after freakouts, she said. Cassie says Diddy gave her bloody lips and black eyes, and the jury has seen images of them. CNN leaked video of Diddy hitting Cassie in a Los Angeles hotel hallway in 2016. The jury saw it. That's seen by billions. Cassie testified she tried to exit a freakout party in that video. Before we return to court, I want to provide a law and crime legal notice. The jury has also heard Cassie's testimony about the freak-off party's bodily effects. A conversation from the transcript. In her testimony to the prosecution, she added, "Sometimes I got ulcers on my tongue from freak-offs, narcotics, and oral friction. Her tongue on oily and lubricated objects caused friction," she says. "We know the jurors saw a freak-off image, but we don't know what it looks like. Our correspondent, who has been in the courtroom every day, claims it was only presented to jurors, not gallery goers." The defense had Cassie read dozens of text conversations from her and Combs during their relationship during cross-examination. This message suggests she participated in the freak-offs. Quote, "When do you want to stress out, LOL?" Cassie says, laughing. "I'm changing and putting my ring in. Just picked it up. Always ready to panic." The defense is trying to portray Combs and Ventura's relationship as more loving and consensual than Cassie's testimony and show that she was a willing participant and often organized the freak-offs. They claim she frequently called the escorts and organized these things. Since the federal authorities revealed their case against Sean Combs in 2024, baby oil has been a major piece of evidence. Federal authorities claim that they seized 1,000 bottles of Sean Combs' baby oil. Baby oil was mentioned twice in Cassie's cross-examination transcript this week. Cassie stated they would fill a baby pool with baby oil during a panic. Cassie says they used drugstore-bought Johnson & Johnson baby oil. In this exchange, the defense counsel states, "Just to clarify, there were no drugs in the baby oil, correct?" Cassie says no, not the ones. The attorney replies, "Never in your experience, right?" Cassie declines. "Do you always take medications orally?" The defense attorney asks. So, Cassie says yes. The defense counsel asks, "You testified yesterday that you would heat baby oil, right?" So, Cassie says yes. In addition to showing how much baby oil it would take to fill a small pool and that they heated it up for a freak-off, that exchange is crucial. Last October, Jane Doe, a victim, filed a civil suit against Combs, alleging that the baby oil found in his home was spiked with GHB. In her testimony yesterday, Cassie said she tested GHB while dating Combs. This exchange, the defense claims it was a special time to try new substances, right? Cassie answers, "We tried several medications." Yeah. The defense says, "Some took and some didn't, right?" Cassie agrees. The defense claims you tried psychedelics. Uh-huh. Cassie admits to taking GHB, but she didn't know it was laced in baby oil. Cassie also went to drugstores for candles, adding, "I'm going to Duane Reade to grab candles, and I'm going home to pack us a bag. Do you want my reg, clothes, or sweats? After checking in, I may set up the room. Before leaving the house, I'll eat, take vitamins, and get ready. Just curious about your thoughts." After Cassie's testimony about Combs' alleged abuse of her during their relationship, you wonder if these messages, showing that she would set up the freak-offs, will affect the jury's perception of this relationship. Texts show Cassie done a lot of purchasing for these freak-offs. for these. The defense showed her text messages about coming to Pleasure Chest for sexual materials, lubricants, and costumes. The defense also notes that Combs volunteers to get goods at a store in this transcript. They claim he often picked up supplies for the freak off, right? Cassie says he got supplies. Again, the defense is trying to make the freak off sound more consensual than Cassie's evidence in the initial days of her trial. Or, Cassie visited Hustler, another adult store. She writes at Hustler about back out trying to find something to impress you. This trial, which is likely to continue over a month and a half, may include more freak-off video evidence. Former prosecutor and current criminal defense attorney Safa Robinson Ferrer joins us to discuss courtroom events. Your presence on Law and Crime is always welcome. We're hearing about baby oil and kiddie pools being utilized for freak-offs. Why does the defense need to mention that Cassie had these products and bought them supposedly while helping put these freak-off parties together? The defense must show that she was a willing and voluntary participant, that these freak-offs were just a couple engaging in sexually risque behavior, not domestic violence or forced participation. So her evidence in the defense's cross-examination that she went to the store and bought these products would invalidate the prosecution's claim that she was compelled to do them. The defense would want to emphasize that, while he was domestically aggressive, he was not detaining her against her will. This was not a sex trafficking instance in which she was forced to engage, but she did so voluntarily. That's the defense's main target. In certain cases, she traveled to Duane Reade, a New York City drug shop for non-Northeast viewers. She then visited other places to buy apparel or goods for the freak-off parties. However, the defense noted that Sean Combs had previously volunteered to pick up items for a freak-off. Why does it matter? It's important because it shows that this was likely a pair that was just engaged in a certain sexual lifestyle, that he and she would go to pick these things up at times. Couples and individuals living this lifestyle often accomplish these things. Again, the defense will try to emphasize that our client is violent, but this is not racketeering. This is not sex trafficking. These were willing participants. Two consenting individuals and other willing adults may have consented to these connections. When Sean Combs was arrested and the federal authorities launched their case, the fact that they say he had 1,000 bottles of baby oil made headlines. It came up yesterday. Why is baby oil significant in all the freak-off news? As we've heard throughout this trial, baby oil was a very essential aspect of the freak-offs. She would lather herself or be lathered in baby oil. I suppose other participants use baby oil, so it's important. I don't think it's as important as people say. Yesterday, a critical ingredient of the baby oil received a lot of attention. The defense then pointed out that the baby oil was drug-free. Cassie confirmed. There was a civil complaint that touched on this, but why was that also relevant to this item that was reportedly utilized in these freak-off parties? Where is this laced baby oil from? It's crucial because the prosecution will try to prove that he drugged these people, including Miss Ventura, to commit these freak-offs. Miss Ventura's testimony that the baby oil was clean and drug-free contradicts the prosecution's claim. Cassie's or Miss Ventura's testimony that the baby oil had no medications is crucial. The prosecution may try to allege these baby oil bottles were contaminated with drugs, but they don't know. According to Miss Ventura's testimony, that's false. The prosecution's initial questioning, which we only have the transcript for, was raw and emotional. Our reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who was in the courtroom, says that's how it seemed. Very honest testimony. Cassie Ventura claims Sean Combs caused her bloody lip and black eye. How is the defense doing? I assume jurors will recall those visuals, but then the defense will say, you were a willing participant. You wished. Based on what we know, how is the defense presenting that side of the story? The violence and images of her injuries damaged the defense. I think most people who view this, particularly the LA incident video, sympathize with Miss Ventura as a witness. The judge will tell the jury not to bring pity into their deliberations. We're all human. These jurors are people. They will consider that. The defense has a hard time getting past that hurdle. He was charged with using threats and physical assault in the indictment. Evidence and images of Miss Ventura with these injuries could convince a jury that this was the level of force employed and lead to a guilty verdict. Because I know, and others may claim, she was in this relationship for 10 years. Some occurred before the breakup. Why didn't she leave? Many domestic violence specialists and victims believe it's not that simple. It's much more complicated. How do you prove your case as a prosecutor? If your defense says, These texts prove that you were not held against your will in this relationship. You are a willing participant. My role as a prosecutor and what I expect from the U.S., the Attorney's Office, will call an expert witness on domestic violence syndrome, battered woman syndrome, and domestic violence patterns to educate the jury on why women don't leave, or why people don't leave automatically when they're in a violent relationship, especially when they love a person, have been with them for a long time, and have business. A theory or pattern of domestic violence includes the honeymoon period, the violent stage, and other stages. I expect the prosecution to call someone to explain why she may not have left before and why it doesn't matter. Yes, every jury is different, and we don't know what's on this panel's mind, but you work in New York. Usually I think people understand domestic violence better now than 20 years ago or even before that. In your experience, how well informed are viewers on New York domestic violence? The court and attorneys have questioned these jurors at voir dire, even though they are not as informed as you would like. I promise they have questioned these jurors about domestic violence, whether they have been victims or know someone who has, so their experiences will come into that courtroom. The jury will debate the case and decide if Mr. Combs is guilty in the deliberation room. However, publicly and throughout my experience as a former domestic violence prosecutor and now criminal defense attorney, I'm still surprised at how uneducated people can be about domestic violence. Some people will ask, why didn't this person leave before? Without understanding what it's like to be physically, financially, and emotionally abused, having children with an individual, and why you may not leave. However, accountability must be taken for all of our acts in situations we may or may not put ourselves in, so it's a double-edged sword. I'm astonished that today's culture doesn't completely grasp domestic abuse. The direct questioning and testimony of Cassie was emotional and honest. The transcript and our reporter who observed it live say she broke down. What tone? Because then you have the cross-examination, and I imagine you're very emotional that someone is questioning what you say you went through. But the transcript seems to show even light-hearted moments, like her response saying she laughed. How would you like Cassie's demeanor on the stand when she faces tough questioning and evidence if you were the prosecution? I want Cassie to continue as she is. Cassie is an empathetic witness. Her pregnancy is heavy. Juries see that. That may be sympathized with. Jurors will sympathize with this pregnant mother since she described her most physically violent periods in abuse and anguish. That's hard for the defense to overcome. The defense questions. She seems neutral despite their questions. Her comments seem acceptable. Please forgive me, but I haven't seen her fight the defense. As a prosecutor, I enjoy that Miss Ventura hasn't had much back and forth with the defense because I want her to remain true, honest, objective, and tell her tale. She's performing well for the prosecution in terms of demeanor and addressing defense questions. The defense appears to be having her read these text messages, which say she is planning a freak off and wants to be part of one, to show that this relationship was not as volatile as Cassie's testimony suggested. Do you want a gotcha moment when Cassie's on the stand, defense attorney? To what end does this testimony serve in the trial? Gotcha moments are always desired. The defense says Miss Ventura was in love with this man. For this man, you did anything. This man has been and remains larger than life. Powerful and wealthy, he gave you anything. He may have provided you with your desired career. You engaged in this relationship. You testified that you wanted to conduct these freak-offs because you didn't want him to do them with anybody else. Again, proving this was a relationship choice. She voluntarily chose to start and maintain this relationship with him. It failed with him. I expect the defense to subtly suggest that you were upset when you couldn't be with him or have him to yourself. You left the relationship later, probably last year, probably before she filed the lawsuit with the allegations. That wasn't necessary. She wasn't required to say. However, she filed this action long after they left, which earned her a large sum of money and put her in a better situation. The defense will likely try to quietly demonstrate financial motivation for coming out this long time later. She is the government's star witness because she was close to Sean Combs for years and witnessed many of the key events. Unsure what the defense expected at this point in the trial, but has there been any moment that would give them heartburn, knowing that this is the star witness and they're trying to keep Sean Combs out of prison? Yeah. Both the defense and prosecution have intensively prepared for this case. Both sides knew most of what was provided before Miss Ventura testified or began their cross-examination. Every time a defense attorney cross-examines a witness or I ask a question, I know the answer. Thus, the defense is ready. The defense's toughest aspect is getting around and addressing domestic violence. It would have been great to say none of that ever happened because it didn't. But the Los Angeles video, hotel footage, and other evidence make it difficult for the defense to argue otherwise. Hard to predict where this case will go next, who the next witness will be, what evidence will be, and maybe Cassie's testimony if Sean Combs is convicted will be the moment the government's case goes well. What would be the defense's winning moment if Sean Combs is acquitted? I think the winning moment is if the jury decides that this was a consensual, sexually deviant relationship. It's amazing that this company that employs these sex workers hasn't had a government issue. If this company engages in sex, sexual behaviors, sex work, or prostitution, where do they fall in? I could imagine the jury acquitting them of sex trafficking if they believed this was a relationship or that they were all mutually engaged. The defense's challenge is that, and there's the catch-all, traveling via interstate commerce, state to state, casts a wide net for the feds to catch, which gives them a higher likelihood of guilt because we all fly and drive between states. I doubt the jury will find sex trafficking guilty if they don't see it as a sex worker prostitution case. Racketeering will be questioned. The government must prove underlying predicate acts, like arson and others, to establish racketeering charges. Some testimony has been submitted. It's only been based on testimony, I believe. The claim that Mr. Combs blew up Kid Cudi's car is just testimony. Could Mr. Kid Cudi testify later and provide further evidence? A jury may find him guilty of racketeering based on that arson and the level of violence. I know you said that from the outside of Cassidy's cross-examination testimony, it seems like she's holding up well for the prosecution. But has there been any moment from the prosecutor's perspective that may have been a defense win? Yes, absolutely. The defense will argue that she actively engaged in freak-offs in these text exchanges, where he asked her, "Do you want to freak off? Are you ready to panic?" "I'm constantly ready to panic," she says. Text messages showing that she went to get these products, sex worker evidence indicating she paid him, and their instruction on various sexual actions all harm the prosecution's case because they demonstrate consent. I think the prosecution will struggle with those. I expect the defense to keep proving this was a consensual adult relationship. They may have engaged in sexually improper behavior, but this is not a crime. When you're in court, you're trying to tell your side of the story and argue your point, like during the direct examination, when there were pictures of Sean Combs abusing her injuries. The 2016 Intercontinental Hotel Los Angeles video is there. How powerful are visual elements that could just stick in someone's mind? Even if you're saying, okay, here's the proof that she was, part of this, she wasn't being forced to do anything. You're still thinking about Cassie Ventura's black eye in the image you saw 48 hours ago. Visual evidence is the strongest, and video proof is best. That is the most important evidence, and the jury will always remember that the world remembers that hotel film. Many of the jurors have seen that before serving on this trial. Questions concerning this video and whether they've seen it. That evidence is vital. The prosecution has taken it into evidence. Both sides have asked fair questions. The defense is contesting some of the prosecution's force, coercion, and violent allegations. After their cross-examination, the prosecution will be allowed to redirect her testimony and answer some of the defense's less than ideal questions. After this trial, the defense or prosecution can come up and play the footage.